Now we'd like to bring in Dr. Abdul Hai Qanit, a political analyst and commentator on Afghan affairs. Dr. Qanit, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, how has the U.S. withdrawal and the Taliban being back in power impacted regional stability and also Afghanistan's relations with its neighbors?
First of all, when the Americans came to Afghanistan in 2001, they came after one group of the militants, Al-Qaeda, which is very, very famous in the world. And when they were leaving Afghanistan, based on their reports, there were more than 20 groups who were operating in Afghanistan. That gives you an impression that the presence of the United States forces and allied forces in Afghanistan has given a lot of impetus to the insecurity in Afghanistan. Since the withdrawal of the U.S. forces from Afghanistan, what we have seen positively is that the government came under one authority in the security vacuum that we had because of war for 20 years has finished. So now we have a physical security in Afghanistan, and that has given somehow positive face of Afghanistan to some of the regional countries. As we see, there are talks going on with the Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. They're working with the government of Taliban on big projects like Tapi gas pipeline, in Top electric line, in other big projects. We see China and Russia, Iran coming together, talking to the government in Afghanistan. And the main purpose of that is that the reason in cause of insecurity in Afghanistan has been finished with the U.S. 20 years long war in Afghanistan. So I think that could be a better positive start for the regional countries to integrate Afghanistan into the region and come together to solve all the problems that Afghanistan faces today.
And how would you say the withdrawal has shaped U.S. foreign policy in the region? Has it changed its approach to military engagements?
I am thinking that after U.S. forces left Afghanistan, after the withdrawal, they have given up on the physical military engagements in Afghanistan. So now they're looking and they're working with the regional allies of the United States with regards to Afghanistan. For now, the U.S. foreign policy, what we see is the policy of cautious engagement with the current authorities, and also in the same time exerting pressure. What we see, sanctions on the Afghan government, on the Afghan institutions, on the leadership. So that mix of policy gives actually a strength to the U.S. that they actually can secure their national interests in Afghanistan, because we see that they have concerns about the security in Afghanistan. So for that, I think they engage with the regional allies and as well as with the government in Afghanistan, but very cautiously and very limited. And at the same time, despite this engagement, they are exerting pressure, putting more pressure on the government when we see sanctions and other stuff coming on the government. So this mix of the policy of the United States in Afghanistan is actually what U.S. is pursuing since 3 years. And we don't know how the engagement will go further, because there is a lot of disagreement on many issues like human rights, inclusive government, on the assessment, security assessments of the government in Afghanistan in the United States, and also the developments of relations of the current government of Afghanistan with the region, which is a big concern for the United States. So we see in future how that engagement goes on.
So in light of the challenges the sanctions brings, as well as the Taliban's international standing, what's your outlook for Afghanistan in the coming years?
I'm thinking for the past 3 years, what the government of Taliban did in Afghanistan is they built the infrastructure in Afghanistan. They built the military infrastructure. They built the bureaucratic infrastructure, just like your reporter was mentioning, that they're paying salaries of 1 million of government employees. And at the same time, we know that after the withdrawal of the U.S. forces, the previous government completely collapsed with the security forces gone out of the country. So now they had to set up a new military infrastructure in the Ministry of Defense, the intelligence, and the police. And this is what they did in the past 3 years, together with the bureaucracy of the government, so the government functions. So now it's up to the current government of Afghanistan to see how they politically stabilize the society, and also how they can come up with the policies to economically develop the country and put basic foundations for the economy of Afghanistan in future. And that is the big challenge that we see is in the face of the government. But this depends on how the regional countries, especially big countries like China and Russia, is playing in Afghanistan. Right. Since we know the West has a lot of trust deficit with the current government. So we will be looking forward how these engagements, international relations, foreign policy of the government goes on, and that will give us an indication of the future.
Dr. Qanit, thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it. Abdul Hai Qanit, commentator on Afghan affairs.